Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Ushanka Show – Stories about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! Вы смотрите программу Ushanka Show.
You are a fucking agent. All of your pictures are bullshit. Your arguments, too. Look, inequality un USA. USSR was a young country developing. You would be better than China is today. You are an anti-communist. Just accept it, brother. The opportunities you claim are nothing compared to millions of Americans. And are not in Russia because migrated. USSR gave you everything, hypocritical scumbag.
In today's video, we're going to take a look at a very interesting book which was published in Moscow in 1926, and it's called «Твои наркомы у тебя дома», Your People Commissars at Your Home. So this book will kind of help us to expand the topic that I started in my recent video, NKVD, NKGB, MGB, Stalin's Dirty Secret, when we talk about 1946, when Stalin cancelled commissariats and everything got renamed back into the ministries. So between 1917 and 1946, there really was no ministers in the Soviet Union, only people commissars. And as you may know, Soviets always liked abbreviations, so no one was saying Народный комиссар, people's commissar. They were just saying NARKOM. So that could be in English like PIPCOM, people's commissar, PIPCOM, NARKOM. Okay, now we can take a look at Your PIPCOMs at Your Home book and learn more about наркомы. Наркомпрос. Он заботится о том, чтоб ты не был дураком. So наркомпрос is Народный комиссар просвещения. People's Commissar of Education. So PIPCOM Ed. He takes care that you're not gonna be a fool. It's kind of interesting because the word durak, it's kind of pretty rude term. It's a little bit stronger than fool. It's not exactly an idiot, but it's between fool and idiot. And the guy holds in his hand букварь, so that's like ABC book. Наркомпрос. Он заботится о том, чтоб ты не был дураком. And now, boys and girls, let's learn who's this guy. Na 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 na. Hello, comrades. My name is Anatoly Lunacharski, and I used to be a narkompros from 1917 till 1929. Well, first of all, I must say that artist did a pretty good job. The picture and the photo matches pretty good. So, Anatoly Lunacharski, he was born in 1875 in Poltava, Ukraine. He became Narkom of Education in 1917 and worked in that position for 12 years. He never was a part of any inter-party struggle that was going on in the 20s. He was removed from his position in 1929, worked for a while as a director of Language and Literature Institute. In September of 1933, he was assigned as ambassador to Spain. And usually during Stalin rule, if someone would be assigned to the role of ambassador, that's the first sign of trouble. You're being removed from quite high position down to being ambassador, and that's the first bad sign. Next, but he never made it to Spain. He died from the heart attack in France. His body was cremated right away, and he was only 58 years old. Anatoly Lunacharski, наркомпрос. Нарком здрав. За тобою смотрит он дома и на улице, чтобы ты был здоровяком, а не мокрой курицей. PIPCOM of Health Department. He's watching over you at home and on the street, so you're gonna be a strong kid, not the wet chicken. Boys and girls, this is Nikolai Zemsky. He was born in 1874. From 1918 till 1930, he worked as a Narkom of Здравоохранения, People Commissar of Health. He died in 1949 of age of 74, and he became famous for Zemsky system, which is a system of social hygiene. And guess what? I just learned that you can learn more about Zemsky model in Wikipedia. The Zemsky model is a single-payer healthcare system where healthcare is free for everyone, unlike the Beveridge model, where national healthcare is funded through special taxation of the population. The healthcare in Zemsky model is funded from the national budget. The model is named after Nikolai Zemsky, a Soviet People's Commissar of Healthcare. NARKOM Зем. Ходит с думою одной о земле твоей родной, чтобы она дала тебе бы каждый день краюшку хлеба. People's Commissar of Agriculture. He's walking thinking one thought about your land, that land will give you every day a slice of bread. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Alexander Smirnov. He was born in 1878 in a family of peasants, had no education. Between 1923 and 1928, he was Narkom of Agriculture. He was shot in 1938 for creating and participating in a counter-revolutionary organization. He was one of those so-called Starые большевики, old Bolsheviks, that Stalin was killing off in 1937 and 1938. Нарком труд. Смотрит он со всех сторон, чтоб тебя бы никогда бы и нигде не обидели в труде. So Narkom Trud, People Commissar of Labor, holding in his hands Codex Законов о труде, labor rules and regulation. And what is Narkom Trud job? He is watching everywhere from every angle that no one and nowhere will ever treat you bad while you're working. So Narkom Trud, Peep Com Lab, name was Vasily Schmidt. He was born in 1886. He was German by nationality, had a 4-year trade school degree. He worked as Narkom Trud from 1918 till 1928. So it looks like almost everyone worked for about 10 to 12 years. In 1937, he received 10 years in prison, but his sentence was changed the next year. In 1938 he was shot. Нарком почтель, народный комиссар почт и телеграфа. От Египта до Сибири, вмиг со всех земных сторон, все, что делается в мире, все тебе расскажет он. Нарком почтель is a People Commissar of Postal and Telegraph Service. From Egypt to Siberia, from all the corners of the earth, in the moment, he will tell you what's going on in the world. So who was Narkom Почтель? His name was Ivan Smirnov, as you see, resemblance is quite striking as well. Ivan Smirnov deserves a separate video because he was a huge part of Bolshevik movement. He was born in 1881 in a family of peasants. He became a Bolshevik in 1903, so he one of those old Bolsheviks. He was arrested by Tsar government 7 times, spent 6 years in prison and 4 years in Siberian exile, where he actually met and spent some time with Stalin. He worked as a Narkom Почтель, People Commissar of Postal Service and Telegraph, from 1923 till 1927. Right before he took that position, in the spring of 1922, Smirnov was another candidate during the election on the position of General Secretary of Central Committee of Bolshevik Party. So he was an alternative to Iosif Stalin, and he lost that election. So who knows which direction would country go if Ivan Smirnov, not Iosif Stalin, would become a General Secretary back in 1922. Ivan Smirnov actually had a nickname Sibirsky Lenin, or Siberian Lenin, among his comrades. But in 1921, he took Trotsky's side during the argument in labor union discussion between Lenin and Trotsky, and that was a black mark for him. He was expelled from the party in 1927, and later in 1931, he was arrested because he expressed his doubts in kolkhoz, collective farm system. As a member of so-called left opposition, he spent 5 years in prison between 1931 till 1936, and then in 1936, as a part of first Moscow process, he was executed. It looks like Comrade Stalin really hated this guy because besides executing Ivan Smirnov himself, also his daughter Olga got first 3 years of labor camps between 1933 and 1936, then she was executed in November of 1936. His first wife, Rosa, spent 5 years in labor camps, 1933-1938, and they got shot. Then she got shot in May of 1938. His second wife, Alexandra, spent in labor camps time between 1933 till 1956, so 23 years. So it looks like she got a 25-year term in labor camps and she was freed. His girlfriend was shot in 1941. This is how much Ivan Smirnov was thorn in Stalin's side. Okay, moving along. NARKOM путь. Он твои жалеет пятки, и тебя во все лопатки, без забот и без хлопот, паровоз или пароход, куда надо довезет. You probably already guessed that NARKOM путь is people, Commissar of transportation. Well, this short poem kind of hard to translate, but pretty much says, from the bottom of his heart, he feels bad for your feet, and without troubles or worries, the train or the steamboat will take you wherever you want to go. People's Commissar of Transportation name was Jan Ruzutak, and it's not Russian name, obviously. Jan Ruzutak. He was actually Latvian, born in 1887. He got only 2 years of school, so not much education, but he was another old Bolshevik. He became a member of Bolshevik Party in 1905. Jan Ruzutak worked as a NARKOM путь from 1924 till 1930 for 6 years. In May of 1937, he was arrested for leading anti-Soviet nationalist Latvian organization and for being a saboteur and a spy. He was executed in July of 1938. NARKOM Indel, People's Commissar of Foreign Affairs. Говорит он без умолку из Москвы со всей землей, чтоб все страны втихомолку мирно жили бы с тобой. He is talking without a break from Moscow with the whole planet Earth in order that all the country quietly lived in peace with you. So NARKOM Indel, People Commissar on Foreign Affairs, was Georgie Chichirin, and I find it very cute that he actually is wearing a Red Army uniform while doing that job. He was born in 1872, and he actually was the guy who signed Brest peace agreement with Germany back in 1918. And also he signed a secret Rapal agreement with Germany back in 1922. That's what was agreement between Soviet Union and Germany for the secret military cooperation. He was People's Commissar for Foreign Affairs between 1918 and 1930. He asked to be relieved due to the poor health in July of 1930. Maybe he felt there's something is coming. Apparently Molotov asked Stalin to remove Chichirin, and in the age of 64 he died in July 1936. Supposedly Georgie Chichirin died due to the poor health conditions. NARKOM Торг, Народный комиссар торговли, People's Commissar of Trade. Он вечно морщит лоб, чтоб на суше ли, на море ли тебя не объегорили. This rhyme is actually funny. So NARKOM Торг, he always wrinkles his forehead, so that means that he's always racking his brain in order that on land or on the sea you won't get screwed, so like by your business partners. And this is children's book. So NARKOM Торг was, you may recognize the guy, Lev Kaminev. He was born in 1883. He is one of the old Bolsheviks and one of the Lenin's closest allies. He held that position for only 6 months in 1926, and that was enough for him to become a part of this book. Fun fact, it was Lev Kaminev who suggested to elect Stalin as a general secretary of Bolsheviks party back in 1922. He also joined forces with Zinoviev and Stalin during the power struggle against Leon Trotsky. Still, he was arrested in 1935. He got 5 years of prison. Then another 10 years of prison were added to it. But apparently it wasn't enough for Comrade Stalin. Kamenev was part of the first Moscow trial, and he was shot on August 25, 1936. This one is different. Zam NARKOM Торг, заместитель Народного комиссара по торговле. So that's like a vice People's Commissars, like Vice President, this is Vice Commissar. Для тебя он неустанно, объезжая белый свет, покупает в разных странах все, чего в Союзе нет. For you, without the rest, he travels the whole world. He's buying in different countries all the things that Soviet Union doesn't have. The position of Zamkomtorg was held by Aaron Scheinman from 1920 till 1929. Later he became a chairman of the State Bank of the Soviet Union, and he was actually the one who introduced so-called chervonsy, so golden 10-ruble coins and paper money. In October of 1939, on his trip to United Kingdom, he refused to come back. Aaron Scheinman died in London in 1944 at the age of 60, probably due to the poor health. NARKOM Fin, Народный комиссар финансов, People's Commissar of Finances. Водит дружбу он с рублем и с копейкой всякой, чтоб карман твой серебром звякал. He is a friend of every ruble and with every kopeck out there in order that your pocket would make a kachin noise just like silver does. It's hard to translate. Narkom Fin, Commissar of Finances, was Grigory Sokolnikov, a real name Gersh Brilliant. He was born in 1888 and he held position of Narkom Fin from 1923 till 1926. He supported introduction of golden chervonets, and he also was against the collectivization. He was arrested in 1936 as a member of anti-Soviet Trotsky Center and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In May of 1939, so 3 years later, he was killed in prison. Нарком Юст, Народный комиссар юстиции, People's Commissar of Justice. По всему краю сразу он глядит в оба глаза, чтоб тебя не обидел никто бы, и ты сам никого бы. Нарком Юст, he is watching all over the country with his both eyes, that no one will treat you wrong, and you won't treat anyone else wrong. So People's Commissar of Justice Department in the Soviet Union was Dmitry Kurski. He was born in 1874. He was also so-called Old Bolshevik. He held that position from 1918 until 1928, so for 10 years. In 1928, he was removed to the position of Narkom Yust and was sent to Italy, and he was ambassador in Italy from 1928 till 1932. Upon returning to Moscow in 1932, he committed a suicide at the age of 58. He didn't want to wait what's going to happen next. We're not done yet with People's Commissars, but it's obvious already that it was quite a dangerous position. Most of these people got the position during Lenin's rule in the early days of Soviet Russia. Soviet Union was created later in 1922, and sometimes around 1928 and 1932, that's where giant shift was happening in the upper echelon of the Soviet Union, and Comrade Stalin became cleaning up all the old Bolsheviks and sent him to Gulag or to the wall to be shot. Предсовнарком, председатель Совета народных комиссаров, Vice President of the Council of the People's Commissars. Предсовнарком, он и тут, он и там, у него работы куча, заправляет всем он нам, чтоб тебе жилось бы лучше. He's here, he's there, he has a lot of work to do. He manages everything by himself in order so you live better. Предсовнарком was Alexei Rybak. He was born in 1881. He was the fifth kid in a peasant family, so he had pretty rough uprising. He became a revolutionary in college, and he joined the Russian Social Democratic Revolutionary Party in 1898, so he was only 19 years old. And then during a split in 1903, he joined the Bolsheviks. Alexei Rybak held a lot of important positions in the Soviet government. He was a second premier of the Soviet Union between 1924 and 1930. He was a chairman of the Council of People's Commissars of the Russian Federation from 1924 till 1929. He was a chairman of Council of Labor and Defense between 1926 in 1930. Later he became a People's Commissar of Posts and Telegraphs between 1931 and 1936. In February of 1937, right at the meeting of the Central Committee, he was arrested together with Nikolai Bukharin, and in March 1938 he was found guilty of treason and executed. Всесоюзный староста, all-union elder. Если ты чем озабочен, не печалься этим очень, а к Калинину иди и у него спроси совета. Он и староста на это. Всесоюзный староста, so that's quite an interesting term. It was not an official position. It's actually more like a, I don't know, nickname almost. So Всесоюзный means all Soviet, so all over the Soviet Union, and starosta, it's like an elder. But technically he was the president of Soviet Russia and later Soviet Union, and his official position was chairman of the Central Executive Committee, Mikhail Ivanovich Kalinin. If you're concerned about something, don't give too much thought. Just go to Kalinin at once and ask for his advice. That's why he is the elder. All-Union elder Mikhail Kalinin was born in 1875. He was a Soviet politician and another example of the Russian old Bolshevik. He served as a head of state, as I mentioned earlier, and he actually managed to survive under Stalin's rule, and he passed away in 1946 from cancer. Fun fact, well, not really fun fact, Stalin still arrested his wife Ekaterina back in 1938 on charges of being a Trotskyist, and she received 15 years in labor camps. And Mikhail Kalinin still remained in power, and he agreed with that sentencing. After the death of Mikhail Kalinin in 1946, several large Russian cities were renamed to honor his name. The famous one, Kaliningrad, which used to be called Königsberg, and old Russian city of Tver became a Kalinin, later was renamed back to Tver. Mikhail Kalinin had that interesting look that it's easy to confuse him with Leon Trotsky, which I did in one of my earliest videos, and he also looks like a guy from KFC logo. Well, my friends, we are done with the review of 1926 Soviet children's book Твои наркомы у тебя дома, Your People's Commissars at Your Home. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much if you made it all the way till the end. It was probably another long and boring video that some people enjoy. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.